everyone. My name is Ontarion, and welcome to the Ontarion Thundersphere podcast. Today it is a lovely day out in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Beautiful weather, beautiful blue skies. But yeah, this is technically the second episode of the Thundersphere series. So today's topic of discussion is the Egyptian power plant theory. And now this, I have a quick article here from LinkedIn published by Abdallah M.A. Ahmed. He is a postdoctoral researcher. This was published in 2023, so I'm going to read this quick article or excerpt, and then I'm going to give my opinion on it. I'm going to go over some talking points. So yeah, without further ado, here's the article. So the title is The Ancient Egyptian Pyramids Hydrogen Power Plant and Wireless Electricity Transmission Through Obelisks. So that's the title. So here's the article. The ancient Egyptian pyramids are some of the most fascinating structures in the world. Built over 4,500 years ago, they were constructed with incredible precision and engineering skill that still amazes us today. While many theories have been proposed about how they were built, some researchers believe that the pyramids may have been more than just tombs or pharaohs. They may have also been a part of a sophisticated power grid that harnessed hydrogen as a fuel and transmitted electricity wirelessly through obelisks. The idea of the pyramids as a power plant was first proposed by British author Christopher Dunn in his book The Giza Power Plant in 1998. According to Dunn, the Great Pyramid of Giza was actually a machine that used hydrogen to produce electricity. He argues that the pyramid's internal chambers and passages were designed to produce a chemical reaction that generated hydrogen gas, which was then used to power an electrical generator. Dunn's theory has been met with skepticism by some researchers, who argue that there is no evidence that the ancient Egyptians had the technology to produce or use hydrogen as a fuel. However, recent studies have shown that ancient Egyptian artisans were capable of creating hydrogen gas using a simple chemical reaction involving iron and vinegar. This suggests that the ancient Egyptians may have been more advanced than we previously thought. Another aspect of the pyramid power plant theory is the idea of wireless electricity transmission through obelisks. Obelisks were tall, slender pillars that were commonly used in ancient Egypt as monuments and landmarks. According to some researchers, obelisks may have also been part of a power grid that transmitted electricity wirelessly from the pyramids to other locations. One of the most famous obelisks in the world is the Luxor obelisk, which was originally erected in Egypt in 1836 BC. In 1833, the French government acquired the obelisk and transported it to Paris, where it still stands today. Some researchers believe that the obelisk was originally part of a power grid that transmitted electricity from the pyramids to the Templar of Luxor, which was located several miles away. While the idea of the pyramids as a power plant and obelisks as wireless electricity transmitters is still controversial, it is a fascinating theory that has captured the imagination of many researchers and engineers. If true, it could revolutionize our understanding of ancient engineering and provide new insights into how we can harness clean, sustainable energy sources in the future. In conclusion, the ancient Egyptian pyramids are more than just impressive tombs for pharaohs. They may hold the key to unlocking the secrets of a sophisticated power grid that harnessed hydrogen as a fuel and transmitted electricity wirelessly through obelisks. While this theory is still controversial, it is an exciting area of research that could have profound implications for our understanding of ancient engineering and our ability to power the future with clean, sustainable energy sources. So that was just the article there. Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. When you look at the pyramids and the Great Pyramids of Giza, they did, and I mentioned this in the last episode, but it's underground imaging that they use to detect either anomalies or structures built underneath the surface of the earth, so subterranean structures. If there's tunnels down there, you can use this this mapping or this imagery to sort of look under the ground without actually having to dig up what's down there. And what they found were these long tubes that extend several meters beneath the Great Pyramids of Egypt. And that was discovered somewhat recently. I think that was like maybe only a couple of years back they found that. So this actually, adds to the idea, or this may be, more evidence in the realm of this that supports this idea of the ancient Egyptian power plant theory. Another thing, they did find, the article mentioned copper. I believe they found what could be remnants or remains of copper wiring in the pyramids, which could have acted as a conductor of electricity. And what's interesting too, I'll put a picture of this on the screen, but there's images showing how it was the Nile River, I think, that flowed way closer to the pyramids back 4,500 years ago, closer to when the pyramids were built. And by the way, it was also much more of a tropical location. It was essentially what people might refer to as paradise back 4,500 plus years ago, around the time the pyramids were built. And since then, it's possible the poles have shifted a little bit, causing the seasons to change slightly. They vary slightly, so now it's pretty much a desert now, as we know it. But back then, it would have been a lot more tropical. There would have been more water, more trees, more vegetation. It would have been somewhere you'd want to live when they were being constructed, the pyramids. But yeah, they did find that copper. Also, the granite in the subchambers of the pyramids could potentially, have these, they call it piezoelectric properties, which would allow, obviously, for energy to be transmitted or conducted through, these channels of the pyramids, as a structure, and so I guess the way it would work is the Nile River, it would essentially act as a ram pump. So the Nile River the water from the river would flow past the pyramid, and there would be a channel or a passage that would allow the water to get sucked into the lower chambers of the pyramid. This would go down, and it would act as a ram pump. So the water would pass through, and it would just be such an immense amount of water, and the pressure from the water would essentially be what would be generating this electricity. And yeah, I think it's really interesting how that works. But yeah, let me just pull up like a quick diagram of the Egyptian power plant theory. I'm just going to look something up real quick, just so I get this right, about how ram pumps work. There it goes. A hydraulic ram pump works by using the kinetic energy of flowing water to create a water hammer effect, which in turn forces a portion of the water to a higher elevation. The pump essentially works in a cyclical manner, where water flowing through a drive pipe builds up speed and momentum, eventually slamming a waste valve shut. This sudden stop creates a surge in pressure, which then forces open a delivery valve, pushing water into a delivery pipe and delivering it uphill. So that's the breakdown of how a ram pump, utilizing water as its main power source, main source of where the electricity is getting generated from. That's how that would work. So essentially, the pyramids would have been this sort of this power plant that uses water to generate electricity, which isn't so different from modern day obviously we have coal, standard generators, power plants, which put a lot of, they have a very high carbon emissions. They put a lot of soot and dust into the atmosphere, which isn't good. And then we have nuclear, which uses nuclear fission to generate, immense amounts of heat, which essentially boil water, turning that into steam. That steam travels through a pipe. That pipe leads to a generator or a turbine. That turbine spins and acts as a generator, generating electricity. And this is essentially how nuclear works. And then there's also nuclear fusion, but that's a little more complicated. But nuclear power would be the safest option, unless we go back to this ram style of generators, which I don't know. And I think it's funny. I actually saw, it's like, if you're on Instagram a lot, you'll see, you'll know what I'm talking about. But there's this meme going around where people talk about there's a meme going around where people kind of joke with the idea that people who aren't familiar with nuclear power So the idea that, so if you're familiar with Instagram, you might be familiar with this meme going around that's essentially the nuclear power. It's on Reddit too. It's on all sorts of apps. But I saw it on Instagram, and it's like, where people see nuclear waste, or they see nuclear generators, nuclear power plants, and they associate that with green barrels with hazardous ooze leaking out of it, which they might have seen on something like The Simpsons or something. And this just obviously couldn't be further from the truth. I think the amount of spent nuclear fuel or nuclear waste needed for one person's entire lifetime, so 70 plus years would be less than a Coke can's worth of fuel, so it's and it gets recycled also, I believe. They don't just dump it into a pit out in the river, like a stream, like a runoff valve, that stream that leads into like a river where there's like fish dying, and with the fish with the crossed out X's for eyes, and like that's not realistic. I think we need to go nuclear in terms of our power plant, infrastructure. Yeah, I mean it's so it's a lot cleaner for the environment than coal or standard power plants. You can't really compare that to Chernobyl, because Chernobyl was underfunded. It was understaffed. The staff wasn't experienced. It was mismanaged, It was Soviet technology, old Soviet technology. It was the bureaucrats and the politicians and the leaders of the Soviet Union who caused that disaster. And you can blame Dyatlov, like the overseer of the operation that night on April 26th, 1986. But it was a lot. Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't have been. If you've seen the Chernobyl series, you'll know what I'm talking about. And by the way, it's a great miniseries on HBO. I think it's on Max. But yeah, I mean, yeah, essentially it was there was a positive void coefficient, I think is what they called it, and essentially there's the chambers that's inside the core of the reactor are made up of graphite blocks, and the graphite actually accelerates reactivity or increases the reactivity of electrons and protons in the reactor core. So this is what generates the heat, which is gonna turn the water into steam. The steam's gonna turn the turbine, and you have electricity. So the graphite accelerates the reaction, and then boron actually reduces the reaction. So that's why they have what are called boron control rods. And essentially, when you depending on how retracted the control rods are inside the core, the reactor core is going to determine the reactivity level, the level of reactivity. It's going to control the fission within the core. So when you push the control rods into the core, the idea is that that's supposed to reduce reactivity and therefore less heat. And then as you pull them out, it's going to increase the reactivity and therefore more heat. But obviously, you can get, if this remains uncontrolled, you'll just have a runaway reactor where it will generate way too much heat, way too much energy. There's way too much reaction going on inside that core. This is essentially what happened with Chernobyl. What happened were, since graphite increases reactivity, the tips of the control rods were actually made up of graphite instead of boron. And the power plant employees that night didn't know. They didn't know. This was unbeknownst to them. Like, they just hadn't been informed that pressing the emergency kill switch could lead to an explosion. That's just that was unheard of before Chernobyl. They didn't think it was possible that could happen, but it did. So they hit whoever was in charge of commissioning this power plant, whoever was in charge of the construction of the power plant originally didn't account for the control rods. Or they did, but they figured they'd try to save a few bucks by having them tipped with graphite instead of boron. And that endlessly accelerated the reaction until the core just couldn't contain the pressure anymore, and it just blew the lid off. And then at that point, you have an exposed reactor core that just is going to leak radiation into the environment for many, many years. I think the half-life of that decaying isotope, whatever it was, is like 50,000 years. So for Chernobyl technically won't be completely safe to live in for another 50,000 years, I think. But this is all just like interesting theories. But getting back to the Egyptian thing, I think the Egyptians most likely had a better quality of life, back 4,500 years ago when the structures were built, or being built, the pyramids. I think people probably, if you have that much manpower and that much dedication to build those pyramids, then you've got to, it's like a lot of people have the same shared goal. We could get, this gets into like the god territory, or it could get into the god territory as in like Thoth or Osiris or Iris, I think, or Horus. We could talk about the Eye of Horus. But I think that's all for another episode. I just wanted to focus on power plants for this episode. So the power plant theory. It's I think that's pretty much it for this episode. It's I'm trying to keep these episodes around like somewhere in the vicinity of like 20 to 25 minutes long. So I don't know. I think I'm just gonna I got nothing else to say. I want to get some guests on here, so if you're listening and you want to come and be on a podcast, let me know, and it's probably something we can make happen. So all right, thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.